The 15th of April, 1945, southwest of Bergen, Nazi Germany. The British 11th Armored Division liberates Bergen-Belsen, one of the worst Nazi concentration camps, which will epitomize the true bestiality and horrors of the Nazi regime and its death camps. The British forces find 13,000 unburied dead bodies and almost 60,000 prisoners who are sick and starved. More than 13,000 former prisoners, too ill to recover, will die of various diseases such as typhus and tuberculosis. On the 17th of September 1945, the first Belsen trial begins, in which 45 former SS men, women, and prisoner functionaries from the Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz concentration camps face charges for war crimes and crimes against citizens of the Allied countries. One of the defendants is Erich Zoddel. Erich Zoddel was born on the 9th of August 1913 in Berlin, then part of the German Empire. Zoddel was 19 years old when on the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. The first concentration camp, Dachau, was established in March of the same year, less than 2 months after Hitler became the Chancellor. The Nazi camp system began as a system of repression directed against political opponents of the Nazi state. In the early years of the Third Reich, the Nazis imprisoned primarily communists and socialists. In about 1935, the regime also began to imprison those whom it designated as racially or biologically inferior, especially the Jews. The Second World War, which began on the 1st of September 1939, brought unprecedented growth in both the number of camps and the number of prisoners. Within 3 years, the number of prisoners quadrupled, from about 25,000 before the war to about 100,000 in March 1942, and the camp population came to include prisoners from almost every European nation. During the war, the organization and scale of the Nazi camp system expanded rapidly, and the purpose of the camps evolved beyond imprisonment toward forced labor and outright murder. Throughout German-occupied Europe, the Germans arrested those who resisted their domination and those they judged to be racially inferior or politically unacceptable. People arrested for resisting German rule were mostly sent to forced labor or concentration camps, where they were literally worked to death. According to SS reports, there were more than 700,000 prisoners registered in the concentration camps in January 1945. Erich Zoddel also became part of the Nazi camp system. The Norwegian Bergen-Belsen survivor, Arne Moy, described Zoddel, a dairyman by profession, as a violent professional criminal who had served several prison sentences before being transferred to the concentration camps. In 1941, he was sentenced to 1 year in prison for theft, and at the end of 1942, he was transferred to Sachsenhausen concentration camp, where he stayed for 14 days. Zoddel was then assigned to work at the Heinkel aircraft factory in Oranienburg, where he remained until the end of October 1943, when he was moved to Buchenwald. In November of the same year, Zoddel was sent to Mittelbau-Dora, a sub-camp of Buchenwald, until it became independent in 1944. At Mittelbau-Dora, just like in many other concentration camps, prisoners were required to wear color-coded triangles on their jackets, so the guards and officers of the camps could easily identify each person's background and turn the different groups against each other. Political prisoners, such as communists, socialists, and trade unionists, wore red triangles. Roma and others the Germans considered asocial or shiftless wore black triangles. Jehovah's Witnesses wore purple ones. Gay men and men in prison for homosexuality had to wear pink triangles. Because Zoddel was a common criminal, he was required to wear the green one. Green badges were set for convicted criminals who were likely of a tough temperament, suitable for capo duty. The capos were prisoners in Nazi camps who were selected by the SS to supervise other camp inmates in exchange for better food, clothing, and housing, and they were often as brutal as their SS supervisors. Prisoners in this category, such as Erich Zoddel, were mostly Germans. The inmates at Mittelbau-Dora were treated in a brutal and inhumane manner, working 14-hour days without access to basic hygiene, beds, or adequate rations. They endured extreme cruelty, often suffering injuries, permanent disability, disfigurement, and death. Severe beatings, deliberate starvation, torture, and summary executions were routine. In many cases, prisoners were forced to hang other inmates under threat of execution if they refused to cooperate. The death toll in Mittelbau-Dora was exceptionally high, and from October 1943 to March 1944, out of 17,500 slave laborers, almost 2,900 died. Another 3,000 who were very ill or dying were sent to the Majdanek and Bergen-Belsen concentration camps. In March 1944, Zoddel was one of the 1,000 sick prisoners who were transferred from Mittelbau-Dora to Bergen-Belsen. 3 days after their arrival, he was promoted to block leader, and in January 1945 to camp leader. In his new role, Zoddel was responsible for maintaining the general order and tidiness of the entire camp. His duties included ensuring that the working parties went out, checking the numbers of those who returned, and overseeing the fair distribution of food. Zoddel soon began to abuse his authority over the prisoners. Holocaust survivor Isaac Lozowski recalled that Zoddel always carried a stick with an iron pipe at the end, using it to beat prisoners on the head and body. In March 1945, Lozowski witnessed Zoddel's brutality firsthand. Early one morning, while waiting to move out for work, he saw a very sick Polish Jewish prisoner approach the Capo, saying he was too ill to work. Directed to the roll call area, the sick man walked away, but crossed paths with Zoddel. Without a word, Zoddel struck him on the head with his metal-tipped stick, killing him instantly. Another Holocaust survivor, Hanka Rosenweig, recalled an incident in April 1945. She saw Zoddel beat her friend during food distribution in the camp. Her friend had pushed forward to get his food quicker from the capo. Zoddel responded by beating him on the head and chest with his fists and kicking him in the testicles with his jackboots. He fell and lay in agony for about half an hour before Rosenweig took him to the hospital. She visited him daily, but several days later, the warden informed her that her friend had died. On the 15th of April 1945, Bergen-Belsen concentration camp was liberated by British troops. They found around 60,000 starving prisoners in the camp, most of them seriously ill. Shortly after the liberation, the British captured Nazi criminals such as Josef Kramer, the former commandant of Auschwitz-Birkenau and the last commandant of Bergen-Belsen. After evacuating the camp, the British forces burned it down to prevent the spread of typhus. During its existence, approximately 50,000 inmates died in Bergen-Belsen, and more than 13,000 former prisoners, too ill to recover, died after liberation. On the 18th of April 1945, 3 days after the camp was liberated by the British, Erich Zoddel committed his last crime. Zoddel, a delusional and jealous man, had fallen in love with Maria Konatowicz, a Polish Jewish prisoner at Bergen-Belsen. Maria, who worked as a foreman in the tool shop, wanted nothing to do with Zoddel because he was German. The day before her death, Maria told a friend that Zoddel had threatened to kill her due to her refusal. On the evening of the 18th of April, while Maria was returning to her hut with a young Russian man, Zoddel appeared from behind and shot them both. Maria was shot in the head and body, dying instantly, while her Russian companion, although wounded, managed to escape. Zoddel was taken into custody by the British, charged with murder, and faced trial. During questioning, Zoddel described Konatowicz as his girlfriend, claiming that they started dating about a week before the murder. He also described the events of the night Maria was shot differently, saying that he was walking with Maria towards the canteen where a dance was being held. The Russian man approached, pulled out a revolver, pointed it at them, and said, "That's the end now." He then allegedly fired 2 shots. One struck Zoddel on the back of the neck, and the other killed Maria instantly. His lies, however, did not help him escape justice. On the 31st of August 1945, Zoddel was sentenced to death by a British military court in Celle. The following month, his lawyer filed a clemency petition, arguing that the conviction was primarily based on the testimony of 2 witnesses who might have been mistaken, and that Zoddel had not been able to find a witness to support his defense. However, these arguments were rejected by the court. Moreover, on the 17th of November in Lüneburg, the first Belsen trial sentenced Zoddel to life imprisonment for his abuse of prisoners at Bergen-Belsen. The court said Zoddel had violently abused his fellow prisoners there, often badly beating them with sticks. Erich Zoddel was 32 years old when on the 30th of November 1945, for murdering Maria Konatowicz, he was executed by guillotine at the city prison in Wolfenbüttel in Germany. There were no tears shed for Erich Zoddel. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.